Awesome. You may be seated. So now that we have stretched our bodies, we're going to stretch our minds a little bit as we look at a new model of leadership that we are exploring for the administrative work of the church. You read some of the rationale behind that in the newsletter this past month, and we'll continue to give you more and more pieces of the puzzle starting even today. So this will be a three-part presentation. Everybody say three. With Jesse Resnick sharing the history behind this work, Brad Lane sharing some of the whys and other words along with that, and then I'll be back to share what this new model might look like. So thank you both in advance, and the podium is yours.
All right, can you hear me, folks? Okay, good. Well, hello again. As Pastor Tal said, I was going to provide some of the history behind what we were looking at with the leadership model and a change in the leadership model. And as far as that goes, when you talk about the history of it, this is not something new or not something that has come up about just in the last 6 months or year or because of COVID. This actually dates back over 5 years, and it dates back to the previous pastoral leadership of the church. And I myself have been involved in this and in discussions about this since actually early 2017, so over 4 years ago. As far as that goes, it truly has been a collaboration between both laity and pastoral leadership. This isn't something where a decision's made by one group or one party and they said this is what we're going to do, or this is the way we want to go, or the direction we want to go. And as far as my part of this, I've been tasked to come in and be part of a task group previously working with Eric Stoner, who was the administrative council chair, and now collaborating with Brad Lane, who will share some information about this and the why behind it. I've been collaborating with Brad, collaborating with the previous, like I said, the previous pastoral leadership, Dr. Dave and Pastor Heidi, and now currently with Pastor Tal and Pastor Bowie. And as far as my research on this, it's involved a lot of reading. It's involved a lot of digging into what are different models, what do they look like, and then what has been the end result after churches have restructured their administrative or leadership model. And this has also brought me to 3 different opportunities to be in front of pastors or lay members of churches that lead these different leadership models and actually get to talk to them face to face. Remember when we got to be able to do that, talk to people face to face? That was fun. We can still do it, folks. But back in June 1st, actually 2017, I was in my previous role and in my previous job where I traveled around Ohio as a sales rep. I met with Pastor Bill Lyle at Peace United Methodist Church, who went ahead and converted their church over to this model. And to give you some context on that, it's a church of about 800 people. So I've gone ahead and looked at how this model works in churches that are small, much smaller than ours, churches that are about our size, and churches that are bigger than our church. By meeting with Pastor Lyle, I really got to see why they went about this change and what it has meant for the ministry and the vision of their church, and all good things that I learned about that. But he talked to me about pros, cons, and I was able to bring these notes back to the administrative council, to the pastoral leadership, and report that on so they would get a real life look at what that has meant. And I've also had the opportunity to meet with one of the board chairs of the Church of the Messiah in Westerville, Ohio, which is a United Methodist congregation, and got to talk to that person from a laity perspective, who is the board chair of that group, and talk about how that has gone ahead and basically put a refresh, so to speak, upon their church, upon their leadership model. And the last thing I got to go to a collaborative. It was a meeting as far as all churches go, and it was part of, oh gosh, I didn't write it down. I forget the name of it, but it was churches from all around East Ohio Conference where they got to learn about this exact new thing about looking at leadership models and how you could go ahead and implement a leadership model that fits the background of your church. So long story short, this isn't something new. This is something that has been researched by different groups here within the church, and just something that Brad is going to go ahead and come up and discuss about the why and why we're looking at this now currently. So, and like I said, why we're looking at this currently is because it's been something that's been brought up for years, and it's been something that's been researched, and now has been a great time to investigate and find what's the best way forward for Medina United Methodist Church. So now I'm going to invite Brad Lane up, and he's going to share some more about the why behind that. Thank you, everybody.
Good morning, everyone. It's interesting to see how many people we have online. So you out there don't know how many people are on there. So good morning. Hopefully everybody can hear me well. So I'm glad to be part of our gathering this morning and to share some of the whys of this proposed as we talk about our administrative restructure or overhaul. So the whys, you know, what are some of the advantages? Why would we want to do something like this? So just some bullet points to go over this morning. Missional focus, increased efficiencies, improved ministry alignment, unleashing laity, releasing enabling staff, and finally accountability. Not finally, actually, we could go on, but to not scare people off like the pastors do when they say they have a 3-hour sermon, we won't do that. So we'll just touch base a little bit on each of these. So to talk a little bit more detail of these. So missional focus, so enhancing our ability to keep the mission and vision of the church ever before us, so front and center. As we heard Pastor Tal say several times, and just about every person who was speaking is talking about our mission, you know, our mission of making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. And then how will we do that? Our vision, the vision of our church, so our vision of loving Jesus, living as a disciple, and sharing the good news of Jesus with others. So much that we do, all that we do, has to be towards the mission and the vision, and doing it in a timely manner. So that leads us to the second of the why, so increased efficiencies, responding to the mission and ministry needs of the church and the world around us. So in other words, responding much quicker than we do today. As Jesse shared about a little bit of the history, so it was probably 5 years ago when I was on administrative council as my role as chair of South Parish. This was discussed, and that was about 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, we began talking about this, and here we are today. We're moving forward with that. So increased efficiency, so getting things done in a much quicker manner because of we have work to do. We have a world to transform. The next bullet point, so improving ministry alignment. Each ministry working in unison towards the one common mission. Again, our mission, making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. So maybe by the end of today, everybody will remember that, know that, if you don't know that already. Next, then, unleashing laity for missional leadership. Our great lay leaders investing more time and energy in the leadership and missions and ministries of our church. Again, focused on the mission and the vision of our church. Releasing enabling staff to be about the ministry to which they're called, which they're gifted, and which they have the passion for. I'm sure that those that are in these roles are not doing that just for the money. So I'm thinking it's some of the other things that draw them to that. And then accountability. So that's always interesting. So accountability is a big part of this. So functional levels of accountability. So first of all, we all know we're accountable to Jesus Christ, every one of us. So when we think about the church in this model, the board, this new model, the board is accountable to Christ for the church living its mission of making disciples. From that, the pastor is accountable to the board for the church annual goals and living its vision of God's preferred future on how it uniquely makes disciples. And then finally, on accountability, the staff, the paid and the unpaid, and the ministry leaders, they're accountable to the pastor for the day-to-day ministry, with the pastor ensuring that the ministries are aligned with the church's annual goals. So there's a brief look at some of the whys. And as Pastor Tao comes back up to share a little bit more details of what all of that looks like. So thank you, everyone, and I look forward to continuing our conversation about this.
I'm back. Did you miss me? Don't answer that. Please don't answer that. Thank you, Jesse, and thank you, Brad. A few things left to talk about here. And I apologize, I just stuck a cough drop in my mouth. So bear with me. How does this new model compare to what we do now? And then a look at where we go from here, okay? Rest assured, friends, there will be many more opportunities for conversations and questions. This is not something that begins effective July 1. We'll talk about a timeline. We'll talk about what has to happen for this to become a reality. It's not a unilateral decision by me. It's not a unilateral decision by the Administrative Council. This kind of administrative change requires a church conference vote. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit. So if you're getting a little anxious, take a deep breath and breathe. It'll be okay. So real quick, I need 5 volunteers. You have to be in the room. You can't be on Zoom to help me with this. But thanks for your willingness. I see hands. All right, that's awesome. 5 volunteers, come on up. Just come on up. When I get 5, you can stop coming up. There's 4. Nobody else wants to stretch. All right, so I need you to grab one of those signs off the table. Keep the number hidden for now on the back and keep the other part facing forward. Yeah, Jesse, why don't you come on right up on here? All right, so we're going old school. This is kind of like, you walk into the principal's office and there's a little sign that says principal. All right, we're kind of going old school with this. All right, so for those of you new to United Methodism, which none of you are, these are the administrative teams of our church. For those of you that can't see them, I will tell you what the signs are that they are holding, okay? This is a brief rundown of the current administrative leadership model that is United Methodism. It has been a part of our polity, our practice, since the formation of the United Methodist Church in what year? 1968, somebody said it. Go Doug, 1968. I was 2 at the time. Since our formation, Clear up until a couple of years ago, every United Methodist Church had to have a board of trustees. So Mr. Trustee, wave your sign, there we go. All right. What do trustees do? They do trustee stuff. What is trustee stuff? Taking care of the property, taking care of our buildings, our facilities, taking care of our parsonages, right? All right. They are the legal representative of the church. They are our legal body. They do that legal stuff as well. If everybody on our board of trustees is at the board of trustees meeting, there's one in every bunch. There's a whole lot in this bunch. If everybody on the trustees is at a trustees meeting, how many people is that? I gave you the answer. What is it? 11. Everybody say 11. There we go. We are also required to have an SPR committee. All right. SPR stands for Staff Parish Relations Committee. They are very close to being the HR, Human Resources Division of the church. We are required to have that group. What does SPR care for? All right, people. The relationships between the staff and the church, making sure that the needs of the church are being met, making sure that we have the staff in place. To do that, they are our HR people. Quiz time again. If everyone is in attendance that is on SPRC, how many people are at an SPRC meeting? 12. Y'all are brilliant. 12 people. All right. Our finance committee, what does finance care for? Money. Budgets, funding of ministry, funding of mission, caring for endowments and end-of-life giving. All of that stuff comes through finance committee. So quiz time, if everyone is in attendance that is on the finance committee, how many people are at that meeting? Y'all are smart people. 16 if everyone is there. That's the committee members, it's the pastors, it's our financial reporting secretary, it's our treasurer, it's our lay leader. So 16 if everyone is there. And then fourth, we have an administrative council. What does the administrative council do? They administrate the council, yeah, or administer the council. My cough drop's almost gone, I apologize. It's just to that awkward stage now where it won't stay where I tell it, kind of like a 2-year-old, you know. The administrative council provides administrative oversight of the church between the annual meetings of the charge conference. So our annual fall charge conference kind of sets the course for the year ahead, and the administrative council guides that work for the coming year. So if everyone is in attendance that is on the administrative council, how many people are there? 15 brilliant people in the room, and I know everybody online had their brilliant answers as well, so thank you for that. Now, if you've been doing some math, you already know that there are 54 people caring for the administrative work of the church. 54. Now, there is some reduplication in there. Your pastors are at most of those meetings. Your lay leader, John Dunn, bless his heart, is at most of those meetings. The chair people of the various committees come to the administrative council. So there is some overlap, but 54 people. So in terms of personnel hours alone, if each meeting were to last 90 minutes, and some of them aren't that short, but if you average 90 minutes, and if you want to include travel time for the shorter meetings, you're talking about 81 personnel hours each month on administration. And if each of those meets about 10 times per year, which is pretty typical, you're at about 810 hours per year for strictly administrative work of the church. Now, this proposed change isn't strictly about efficiency, but that is a piece of the puzzle. But if it were, there's a strong case for it right there. Think if we could free up even half of that time and free up half of those folks from administration so that they could use their, just their very qualified leadership skills in leading mission and ministry, to free up some time for more teachers, more time to lead different ministries and missions of the church and into the community. What a difference it would make. Come on, let me look at my notes and see. No, you can't sit down yet, sorry. I just remember what else I need you for. The other efficiency item that we consider is the current process for any new work to be considered in the life of the church. For example, you'll hear in a few minutes that we are striving to establish a tech team that will look at our current technology picture, assemble a list of needs and ideas, how some of our short-term things can become long-term things, and the equipment we need to make that happen. That idea came out of the Finance Committee, Finance, wave your sign, last fall as they worked on the 2021 budget. That idea then got set to the Administrative Council, wave your sign, all right, for their consideration in January. We talked about it in January, and then in February, we brainstormed the needs about what this team could do and how they could help us better fulfill our mission and vision as a church. After that meeting, that all got typed up and sent out for review, and we'll revisit it again when we meet next week in March. We'll then recruit a team. If you'd love to be on that team, I'd love to talk to you about that. So if you have a heart for technology, a heart for people, if you get excited about that kind of stuff, I need to talk to you. All right. So we'll assemble a team. That team will assemble a plan. They will send it to the trustees for approval. Thank you, Mr. Trustee. And then it will get sent to finance for funding, which will then need final approval if it's not already budgeted money from the Administrative Council. So by about November or December, you see what I'm saying? It's funny, but it's not funny, all right? It takes time to make things happen in the life of the church. So again, just due to our very nature, we are not set up for any sort of efficient response to the rapidly changing needs of the world around us. All right, so let's hear it for those 4 volunteers. Everybody on the stream is clapping furiously, thanking you for your efforts this morning. Jess is still stuck here though, sorry. All right, so in all of their infinite wisdom, the General Conference of the United Methodist Church, which are our representatives from around the world, they meet every 4 years. We'll talk about that again in a little bit too. And they are the ones that establish our doctrine, our polity, how we exist as a church and how we do things as a church. In all of their infinite wisdom, as stated in the 2016 Book of Discipline in paragraph 247.2, it now allows for a local church to adapt its decision-making structure to fit the needs of the church and the community. So it now reads, the charge conference, the district superintendent, and the pastor, when a pastor has been appointed, shall organize and administer the pastoral charge according to the policies and plans herein set forth. When the membership size, program scope, mission resources, or other circumstances so require, the charge conference may, in consultation with and upon the approval of the district superintendent, modify the organizational plans provided that the provisions of paragraph 243 are observed. Does that sound like a lot of legal mumbo jumbo? It is, but what it does is it gives churches permission to formulate a structure that provides for thorough and efficient meeting of the administrative needs of the church. All right. So what we are doing is in line with who we are. It's in line with our discipline, but it's going to look different for us. All right. So I'll turn to Jesse. All right. Yeah. Just because it's further in my notes, but Jesse's going to get tired of standing up here. So instead of having 4 different groups, this model consists of a board of about between 9 and 13, depending on what all the pieces look like, people around the table. Those people will not be trustees, finance, ad council, and SPR. Everybody around the table will function in all 4 of those capacities. So instead of something having to go from finance to ad council to trustees to finance back to ad council, everything can be considered holistically by one group. Does that make sense? All right. So Jesse's there at the table. He's going to process things as a trustee point of view. What are the impacts on our facility? A finance point of view. Okay, that's going to cost money. Where's the money going to come from? Does it require staffing, or what is the impact on our staffing? All right. So instead of having the 4 groups, you have a group of representatives that all function in those 4 capacities. Clear as mud on a hot summer's day? All right. Hold your question, because I'll probably answer it in a couple of minutes. All right. I said that to my wife, not to anybody else. Hold that question. So picture Jesse sitting at a table with 4 baseball caps in front of him. When I was in 4-H, we had our own baseball caps. They had our name on them. We were cool. Towel. I was cool. Not really. Imagine 4 hats. Ad council, trustee, finance, SPR. And imagine, okay, this is an SPR issue. We kind of got to get to SPR, and then there's a finance issue, so we're swapping some hats sitting in front of you because it's COVID. We don't share anything. All right. When was the last time you blew out candles on a birthday cake? Hopefully it's been a while, at least a year. All right. So thank you to Jesse. Everybody say thanks, Jesse. All right. So that's it in a nutshell. All right. The new way would be a leadership board of between 9 and 13 people functioning as a unified board. Around the table of a leadership board then is a group of people who function not just in one role, but a group who function in all 4 of those capacities. A group who can look at things holistically and not just from one perspective. But this isn't just about changing the signs around the table, and it's not just about fewer people. More importantly, it's about a shift from the structure driving the mission to the mission driving the structure. It's about a move from operating in a management style to functioning in a governing style, looking at the big picture. Again, it's about vision and mission driving the church instead of how things get backwards. So it's a consideration of a simplified, accountable leadership model. That's the simplified piece, and Brad touched on the accountability piece, where the board is accountable to Christ for the church living its mission of making disciples. The pastor is accountable to the board for the church's annual goals and living into its vision of God's preferred future. The staff, paid and unpaid ministry leaders, are accountable to the pastor for day-to-day ministry, with the pastor ensuring that the ministries are aligned with the church's annual goals. Now, if I have created a bunch of questions in your mind, I have done my job. And what would we like you to do with those questions? Ask them. If it's a kind of a simple question, you can raise your hand and ask it today, or send a message to Deanne and ask it today. If it's getting into the complex setup of all of this, it might be better to send me an email, and we'll pull those questions together and we'll address those at 2 town hall meetings that will be scheduled after Easter. We're going to schedule one in person and one on Zoom so that we can review everything we've shared with you thus far, and then go a little bit deeper, and then be in dialogue together about any questions that are brewing in your mind and in your spirit. All right, so watch for those again after Easter. The other thing we'll be doing is, I have to talk to Connor about this yet. Oh no, Deanne knows how to do this now. Putting another page on our webpage that will have all of the resources listed that we've been utilizing, so you can look right along with what we're looking at, and we can all end up on the same page. In terms of a timeline, we have one. In terms of a timeline, our goal for implementing this would be January 1, 2022. All right, so that's 9 months from now. It's just easier to do that at the beginning of a new year, just the way our structure and nominations and all of that stuff works. So the beginning of the new year is the best time. In that span of time, we will have those town hall gatherings. We will also need to have a charge conference vote on adopting this new structure. That will most likely happen in or around September. So we've got time for questions and dialogue and brainstorming. Again, it will not happen overnight. It will not happen without a congregational vote or without the support from our new district superintendent. Her last name is Lewis. It'll be easy to remember. All right. And she was our neighbor for a year in Doylestown. So that was cool. So there is a journey yet before us. And again, you'll be hearing more about this in the weeks and months ahead. And now, without wading too far into the details, are there any questions thus far? I have to call up my wife or I'll really be in trouble when I get home. There will be one leadership board, and everybody on that board will function in those 4 capacities. You won't have 3 of them just trustees, 3 of them just finance. Everybody on the board functions in all 4 of those roles. Oh, brilliant question. Brilliant question. It came from my wife. She said, if something breaks then, is that the whole leadership board going to have to take care of it? No, that would be one thing that would change was that along with the trustees serving on that leadership board, we would probably have to create like a church maintenance team of those people that enjoy coming in and love coming in and changing light bulbs, or they just do it out of their heart. I'm not sure. Changing light bulbs, the locks need oiled, that kind of stuff. There are people that just have a heart for that. At the Johnson Church, they were called the Tuesday guys. No, the Troubles, Tuesday Troubles. And they come in and they just fix whatever was broken in the church. And they were retired and they had a passion for that stuff. So we turned them loose and they do amazing work. So that would spark a change in how we deal with some of our physical issues. All right, another great question. What would be the length of term and would they still rotate in classes? Again, it would continue in a 3-year term with a third of those rotating off every year. So the first go around will be the tricky one because you've got to set it up so that you have a natural rotation. And it just takes a little while to get that rolling. Pastor Bowie. How would we pick who's on the board? We're going to close our eyes and go, you and no. With fewer people, you've got to be very careful about who's on that board. Got to be the right people. Got to be the right people. One of the things that is not on this board is the nominations team. There still has to be a nominations team per our discipline. You cannot self-nominate yourself to the leadership board. Otherwise, nobody would ever rotate off because they want that seat. They want that spot. So nominations would, people are saying, I don't want that seat. They're brilliant people right there. So there'll still be nominations team. But one of the suggestions in our materials is that this is an application process to the nominations team. Like, I want to serve on this board. This is who I am. This is my involvement in the life of the church. And these are the gifts that I think I would bring to this leadership board. So continue through nominations, possibly with an application process. Yes. Okay, if I understood her through her mask, she said it sounds like a great model for efficiency, but more work for fewer people. This is, okay. All right, this model calls for a monthly meeting. Whether I love 1 hour meetings, it's 1 hour, I'm done. Don't know if this would be a 1 hour meeting, but a monthly meeting. And I think the efficiency piece is gained in that you're all working together in those different roles at one time. So it doesn't have to go and be explained to trustees and then to finance. And then, so I think what you gain in that efficiency helps the efficiency of the church as a whole. So what's the time commitment going to be? Well, I wish I had a solid answer for that. It's going to be a monthly meeting, but like with any of our other administrative teams, there's always some work to be done in between, just to stay current on things and to stay up on things. So if you ask me that question in a year and a half, I'll have a much better answer for you. All right, any other questions? Again, we've got some months ahead of us to process this, to dig into this a little deeper. We're just trying to bring you out page by page about what we're considering.